Hello, I'm Lorette Ligon, President of the Jacksonville Onslow Chamber of Commerce. And on behalf of the Chamber membership and our Board of Directors, I want to thank you for joining us for Forum Onslow. The Chamber works with government agencies on issues that affect our business community. We monitor legislative issues that impact our local business. We promote partnerships between business, government, military, and education. And we use these forums to create awareness on topics that are important to our entire community, such as the election of those that represent us on the state and local level. We are pleased to have Duke Energy as a sponsor of this Meet the Candidates Forum. Derek Reamer is the District Manager for Duke Energy North Carolina Government and Community Relations. His territory is Onslow, Jones, Pitt, Carteret, Duplin, Wayne, Lenoir, Craven, Pamlico, Beaufort, and Greene counties. So as you can tell, he's a busy man. But he did record a message for you for today.
Hello and welcome, candidates. I am Derek Reamer, your District Manager for Government and Community Relations for Duke Energy. We are proud to sponsor these candidate forums and thank the Chamber of Commerce for working hard to make sure you're given this opportunity. At Duke Energy, I'm excited about informing the community of the Carolinas Carbon Plan, which will focus on reducing our carbon emissions by 70% by 2030 and going net zero by 2050. The commitment to creating a cleaner environment will include transformative and innovative strategies like renewables and grid investments. A recent example of this can be seen at the existing solar facility at Camp Lejeune, where we will soon be adding large-scale battery storage to supplement the solar facility for when the sun isn't shining. This will help with not only a cleaner energy solution, but our resiliency efforts as well. Having worked in government for a number of years, I want to express my personal thanks to you and your families for your willingness to serve. It's not an easy decision to enter into public service, but know that we thank you and have a great forum.
All right, and on with the show. So Elliot Potter is our moderator for today, and Elliot is a retired newspaper man who served as editor of the Daily News for more than 30 years. He currently works as a communication consultant, including helping One Place in its Child Advocacy Center spread the word about protecting our children. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Elliot Potter.
Thanks, Lorette. I am absolutely excited about seeing a full panel of, these are the Republican candidates for sheriff. And you get to pick one if you're a voter, not like in some of the other races where you get multiple choices. But every time, I've done these a lot of years, I've talked about that, but every time I see a sheriff's race on the ballot, a competitive sheriff's race, I can tell you that it always generates a lot of interest from the public. So I'm hopeful we'll have an enlightening day today. Let me go over the format. This program will consist of 3 parts. A 1-minute opening statement, a question and answer period in which the answers will be 1 minute, and then a 1-minute closing statement. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to answer the questions, as I said, and we're going to rotate the order of questioning as we go. At the end of the round, the responses to our questions, each round, candidates will then have a chance to add, you have 2 cards, I believe, 30-second, we call them rebuttals. They could just be continuation of comments. We're fairly lenient about how we allow those to be used, except we ask that they not be used either for the opening or the closing statement. In the interest of time, you are limited to 2, so please use them wisely. Candidates, raise your card. I think you've seen that at work, and if you'd like to use one of your opportunities to further address the question. And at the end, as I said, we'll have the summations, and you'll have 1 minute for each one of those. Perhaps you can talk about an issue that we didn't get to today, or you can have a chance to talk about something that was brought up and you would like to expand on that a little more. I would say that there aren't many ground rules, but we do ask this, that you address your answers to the audience, to me, because this is a forum, not a debate with each other. We ask the audience in turn to please refrain from applause during the program but we'll, hopefully we have time to give everybody a round of applause at the end. So please try to adhere to the time limits. You know, the lighting system is fairly straightforward. When you see a yellow light during the 1-minute sessions, you will have 30 seconds to complete your answer. When you see a yellow light during the rebuttal rounds or the rebuttal cards, that means you have 15 seconds. When you see a red light and the buzzer go off, I do ask that you complete your sentence. Not necessarily your thought. You may not have a chance to do that, but so that we can be fair and try to keep things moving. So we're going to go ahead and move, and we're going to start with Jacob Donenworth, and we're going to talk about, we're going to have the opening statements, and then we'll move to your left. And during the opening statement, we do ask that each candidate state your name, provide us with a sentence or two of background information to introduce yourselves, including where you reside and maybe your current occupation, if that's applicable. Please give us an idea about why you were running for office. So I will ask you guys if you have any questions of me, or if not, we'll let Mr. Donenworth get us going.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for moderating. Thanks to City Hall and for Lorette for putting this on. My name is Jacob Donenworth. I am a transplant here down in the South via the Marine Corps. I'm from up in the Adirondack Mountains. First time I got stationed down here, I said I don't ever want to go that far north again. You know, this is as far as I ever want to go from here on out, as far as living somewhere. So, you know, my wife and I absolutely fell in love with the place, and this is where I want my kids to grow up, which is why we've chosen this to be where we stay. I got my criminal justice degree at RIT in Western New York. Then after that, I went into the Marine Corps for 6 years. I was an engineer officer, so I've been a company commander. I've run organizations with hundreds of people in them before, and that leadership is what I'm hoping to bring over into the sheriff's office. I am running because the way that the government is set up, there are supposed to be elected representatives of people that run the government organizations, and I think that we are lacking that currently at the local level.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Chris Thomas.
Thanks for having us. I appreciate the opportunity to come before y'all today. My name's Chris Thomas. I was born here in Jacksonville. Me and my wife of 25 years live in Richlands. I am a career law enforcement officer. I'm also a veteran. I have dedicated my adult life to serving my community and my country, and I want to continue that as a sheriff. I have a vast amount of knowledge that I would like to continue contributing to the sheriff's office and other law enforcement agencies. Onslow County is my home. I want to keep it a good place to live. I want to continue trying to help reduce the crime that we have in our community. The county needs good law enforcement throughout, both in the municipalities and in the county, and I think I possess the qualities that do that. If I have to explain to someone why I chose law enforcement as a career, I'm not sure you'd understand, because it is truly a calling. It is something I have done my entire life, and it is a calling. Thank you.
Okay, you know what? They changed it. I don't know how Z got before a while. When I was in school, anyway.
Maybe we went by first editions. Maybe that's what we did.
All right.
Hi,
JJ Zamora.
Yep, I'm JJ Zamora. I lived here in Onslow County since 1984, where I grew up in Huber and now reside in Swansboro. At the age of 17, I was pretty fortunate that I answered our country's calling and enlisted in the United States Army as an airborne military policeman. And I spent 3 of those 5 years fighting for our country abroad in Afghanistan and Iraq. I came back, married my wife, and decided to serve our state as a North Carolina highway patrolman, where I did that with honor and integrity. Whenever we brought our daughter into the world in 2010, I decided it was time for me to leave. So in 2012, I opened a small business and became a stay-at-home father. I've elected to serve our country. I've served my state. I served my community with our small business and with my therapy dog. And now I'm looking to serve our county as the sheriff of Onslow.
Yeah, Mr. John Yop.
Of course, my name is John Yop. I grew up here in Onslow County. My family's been here since the 1700s. I'm married to my best friend. We've been married for 25 years, me and my wife. I started my law enforcement career here in Onslow County at the sheriff's office. I'm currently serving as a patrol sergeant for North Topsail Beach. I really wanted to run for sheriff for the fact that I see a lot of what happens in our county. And being at the sheriff's office and being at the police department, I believe I've got a unique perspective on how they can work together and what we can do to better unite all of our law enforcement here in Onslow County. That is my goal, and I don't want to see a sheriff's office that's grown stagnant remain in office. That's why I'm running.
Okay. All right, well, we'll get on with a round of questions. Mr. Thomas, we'll start with you and work our way around back around the table. And we'll just kind of keep that pattern going as we move through. The Onslow County Sheriff holds a uniquely autonomous position in local government. And the men who have worn that badge have brought their own styles of leadership to the job. What kind of management style can we expect from you as sheriff if you win this election?
I've always been the type of law enforcement leader that is the one that gets in there with his people. I always respond to the major calls in the county. If there's a homicide, you will most likely see me respond to it. I say that to say that you have to be there with your staff. You have to know what your staff and your deputies are doing. You have to show them that you're willing to work with them. And that's the kind of leader I'll be. I'll lead from the front. I will not lead from the back.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Zamora.
Okay, so I am a servant leader, meaning that I always serve our employees and our citizens. As a small business owner, no job is really too small for me. So even after I leave this event and we have a photography shoot tonight, I will be the one that's out there cleaning my toilets and getting the studio ready and prepped for that. Because I don't ask my employees or my assistants to do that, I do it myself. Whenever you're a servant leader, you always make sure that your people are taken care of. I'm a very hard person to find in the office and an easier person to find out in the field. As a small business owner and being in the Army and on the highway patrol, I can definitely tell you that people leave their bosses, they don't leave their jobs. And so as a good leader, I've been very fortunate to always prop my assistants up and make sure that they get jobs and opportunities that they otherwise wouldn't have had. And that speaks to the great relationships that we still have to this day.
I'm a listener. I listen to what people tell me, and I like to see what people have got to offer. Any idea is a great idea. A lot of times, I've found that I'm a good administrator, but I'm a hands-on guy. I'm the kind of guy that would be responding to all kinds of calls. I'm the kind of guy that would work patrol when I've got time to do so. If a lawyer came to the jail and said, hey, look, they're busy, they can't get my inmate up to, for a conference with his lawyer, I'd go down there and get the inmate and bring him up from the jail. Anywhere that we're lacking or we are short of a person on a shift, expect me to be there. But at the same time, I'm a good administrator too. I know when and what to put together and how to put it together. I know how to find people that have a heart to do a job and get them into that position.
Okay, and we'll go over to Mr. Donenworth.
So the leadership style that I validated while I was in the Marine Corps is, of course you have to be a servant leader, but your goal whenever you're running any organization should be to prepare everyone who works for you to take your place. You should not be the single point of failure in any given organization. So, you have to trust your subordinates and develop them via the resources that are available. So if you look at where the certifications and training all come from, that all the deputies that are out there whooping it on have, it comes from Raleigh, it comes from federal agencies. So less emphasis, especially in the military, when the way the commissioning program works, that machine would come to a grinding halt if you had to have done everything your people had done in order for respect to exist. It comes from a care for your people, from understanding what you want them to accomplish, and then putting them in a position to where they can succeed. And that comes from trusting them and developing them so they can take over whatever the next step in their path is.
Okay, well, thank you. I'll look around, and then I'll go back to question number 2, and we're going to address this to Mr. Zamora, let you start this round. Recruiting and hiring law enforcement officers is becoming increasingly difficult across the nation. Most analysts expect that trend to continue. As sheriff, what steps would you pursue to ensure that Onslow County maintains an adequate staff of trained law enforcement officers? I would say not only in the sheriff's office, but also in some of the municipalities out in the county.
Right, so that's a great question. On the highway patrol, I was actually assigned on top of my patrol duties of being the recruiter for our district, and I actually literally became the face of the highway patrol for all of Eastern North Carolina for recruiting. So there's a great issue that we talk about and that we understand. We have to change the culture. And as a good servant leader, whenever you put people in place in your staff that create an environment where you can come in. We always say as leaders, hey, my door is always open to you. But a great leader provides the confidence in his employees where they can actually walk in that door and know that they will be listened to and be heard. When we start doing things like that, and we start working with our community and our small business owners, so the community has a say-so in who is working for them, that brings us together. Whenever we can change that type of culture, that means we're going to bring more people in to work with us. And as we work with our municipalities, we can also build a relationship with them and have a great hiring process for the entire county.
Okay, Mr. Yap?
Again, you know, the current administration started off really strong, and I lost a lot of officers from North Topsail Beach, and even in the recent last year. You know, making an officer feel comfortable and in their position, I mean, it could be something as simple as outer vests, supporting them, making sure they've got the tools and the training to actually thoroughly do a good job. When morale gets low, like right now, the sheriff's office has a stagnant situation going on where we're losing officers. We've lost some of the top brass in the jail. There's no reason for those guys. I mean, we're talking guys who've been there for 10, 13 years. This is unacceptable. We need to find ways to listen to the guys, find out what's happening to them, and why they're anxious to leave the sheriff's office.
Okay, Mr. Dunderworth, I'm going to again read the question. Recruiting and hiring law enforcement officers is becoming increasingly difficult across the nation. Most people are expecting that trend to continue. As sheriff, what steps would you pursue to ensure that Onslow County maintains an adequate staff of trained law enforcement officers?
Good question. So that comes down to a couple of different items, right? So you have the command climate and how people feel that, you know, whether they're understaffed or overworked or how they're treated, if they're treated like adults or whether they're micromanaged, all these things, you know, put into the command climate, how it feels to be at work and what is typically a thankless job. No matter where you are in America, no one's happy to get a speeding ticket or, you know, to have them show up in the middle of the night. So you have to make sure that when you're running that administration, that it is thankful, that you're doing everything you can to invest in those guys and gals so that way they want to stay. And that doesn't just come with how you treat them, but it also goes into whether or not you can convince, you know, the budget to increase to a way that's going to give them raises that are going to be meaningful, not barely keep up with inflation. And you have to make sure that the training and the benefits that they get from being a deputy are competitive to other places in the state, so that way you can invest in them and they want to stay and work here.
Okay. And Mr. Thomas?
Recruitment and retention is a challenge, but it's not unique to Onslow County. Almost every detention center within the state of North Carolina is short-staffed now. A lot of them pay more money. Quite a few of them pay less money than we do. There are a lot of things we can do to address those type issues, including scheduling, equipment, supplies that you supply them, opportunities for training, and all those things we're working to do and have been working to do at the sheriff's office for the past several years. When I first came to the sheriff's office 7 years ago, it was not uncommon for us to post for a job position and get 200 applicants. Now, we're lucky to get a half a dozen applicants that are qualified. And we do get applicants from other agencies within the county, and we quite often hire those when we find qualified individuals that can contribute to the sheriff's office. But once you get them there, you do have to train them. You do have to give them those opportunities to train, and you do have to treat them with respect. And I have done that in my career, and so has the sheriff's office since I've been there.
Okay. Does anybody have anything else here to add? Mr. Yap, I believe you're next for this question. The rates of violent crime have shown increases in North Carolina and across the nation, especially in recent years. What are your primary concerns about violent crime in Onslow County? And what can the sheriff's office do to address this issue?
Well, you always hear something about gun control constantly. I would encourage, one of our best defenses, somebody used to say all the time that I carry a gun because I can't carry a cop. Getting our citizens interested in and getting them permits to carry concealed weapons will greatly reduce violent crime, but also having officers available on patrol. Sneed's Ferry is a great example. There's one officer down there most of the time. Sometimes there's two. We're lacking. We don't have enough officers down there in Sneed's Ferry. Being proactive instead of being responsive. When you're chasing call to call to call, you're not going to, the police presence doesn't show up as much. But when you're out there actively patrolling, that officer presence has a way of reducing the amount of crime that's happening in your area.
Okay, Mr. Donenworth?
So I think John hit it on the head. You need to follow the trends of what is occurring and when it most likely occurs. And the police response, not just with the county sheriff's office, but with all the other agencies, should be to interdict rather than respond. They're doing a good job with that. They just need to keep it up. That communication is essential in between all those agencies. The other thing that comes with that is you have to partner with the DA, not just with the other policing agencies, but you need to have that good working relationship with the other parts of the criminal justice system to try to make it so Onslow County isn't a good investment for a criminal enterprise. It's not just arresting people and putting them in jail. It's that partnership with the other pieces that make it go all the way through to where, this is no longer a good place to do crime because they're not playing around in Onslow. That's what the message needs to be. And then finally, not to hit it too hard, but John talked about the Second Amendment. That's huge. Self-reliance is a huge piece of making a community safe.
Okay. Actually, I think I'm going to drop down to a question, a later question that I had, and this starts with you, Mr. Donenworth, and we'll work our way back down.
Elliot, may I ask her the last question?
You sure can. I told you guys, you might have to slap me around a little bit.
They did a great job, but we would still like to respond.
I'm thinking ahead.
I appreciate that. Some of them have mentioned trends up here, and they're right. Trends do matter. And honestly, Onslow County has trended down over the past 3 years for violent crime by 11%. We're also trending down on property crime by 34%. I will say, though, any crime is too much. Education of our community is a big factor for us. We have a lot of community watch programs and things of that nature that we concentrate on so we can make the public aware of what is going on. And also to try to train up our deputies to look for things that are kind of unusual or out of ordinary so they can check those. We do have community officers. We have a community officer in Sneed's Ferry. We have our regular patrol officers in Sneed's Ferry. So we do have to work within our budget, within our staffing, because officers cost a lot of money. And we are a zero-based budgeting agency, so we start from zero every year and have to justify what we have. But more would be better, but we do a pretty good job with what we have now.
Okay.
Okay, I'll finish up and then we can go on like you want to do.
Okay.
So I think, John, we've all done a great job of talking about this. With violent crime, we do need to make sure that we are promoting open carry and concealed carry by working with all of these trained individuals. Take Jacob down here. He teaches that stuff. We have so many veterans in this community that have come out. They either own gun stores or they teach these classes. If we can encourage our citizens to do that, then they can take that responsibility and prevent something. They might be a deterrent for something that's going to be happening in our community. Look, I can tell you, as being a state trooper in Jones County, you would hear the call come out and they need urgent assistance. And even if you drive 120, 130 miles an hour, you could be 12 to 25 minutes to getting there. And that's a long time. But if we can train our citizens to take care of themselves and take care of their families, then that gives us a better chance of survival and deterring violent crime in our area.
Okay, Mr. Yao.
I wanted to add, the situation like Sneed's Ferry, and we've got an area man down there, but he's from the warrant squad. He does paper service. The biggest drinking night we've had lately was St. Patrick's Day night. We responded from North Topsail to assist the county because they have one officer down there. This is what I'm saying. We were lacking in that situation, and there should have been some more forethought to have that area deputy working St. Patrick's Day night to assist that other officer. And that's one way we could also help deter violent crime in that area.
All right, Mr. Donworth, I believe you do get first crack at this question. I think we've been through that. And, you know, I was more confused with 4 people than I was earlier with 8.
Good thing Chris is paying attention.
Would you agree that the sheriff is the elected gatekeeper for Second Amendment rights in Onslow County? How do you see yourself in that role?
Yes, he absolutely is. And, you know, I think that phrase itself is phrased a little backwards in the gate is on the other side of the county border. We need to close that gate from federal and state overreach to make sure that, you know, the sheriff who is elected by the people to protect their rights. I mean, that's how I make the comparison between the Second Amendment and the sheriff. What's the Second Amendment for? To be able to protect yourself. What's the sheriff for? To be able to protect your rights. So he absolutely is the gatekeeper. And the question is, you know, whether it applies to the gate inside the county or the gate outside the county. And I'm a firm believer that it's the outside gate. Hey, these people elected me to protect their rights. You need to butt out because, you know, what they want in representative government isn't included in this non-constitutional stuff you're trying to push. Does that make sense? So, yes, they are, and there's already laws governing who shouldn't have one. So it's not up to, you know, the sheriff to make those decisions. It's the sheriff to make sure that the people have their rights.
Mr. Thomas?
And be very clear, I support the Second Amendment completely. It is as it is written in the Constitution, and that's how it should be interpreted. As a sheriff of your county, the sheriff is the only government entity that is mentioned in the Constitution. He's in the Constitution for a reason. He's in there to protect your constitutional rights. He is standalone. He does not respond to a governor. He does not respond to a county commissioner, nor any other political figure. He is there to stand with the citizens and to protect all of their rights, and particularly the Second Amendment. North Carolina has a law called the Castle Doctrine, where private citizens can protect themselves in their homes with using deadly force if they deem necessary. So I support that. Onslow County is a very bad county to try to commit a crime in, a home invasion or anything, because we issue a lot of gun permits. We are very pro Second Amendment. We'll continue to be under my administration. I will stand with you to protect your constitutional rights.
Mrs. Moore?
Pretty easy, yes. We're going to protect your Second Amendment right. As an avid hunter and as a veteran, you know, I am pro-education for firearms and making sure that we have access to those. I'm not going to allow the federal government to come in and take those rights from you because we are getting a lesson in the Second Amendment right now in the country of Ukraine and how important that is. We have seen through time and time again in our world's history that whenever we take guns away from our citizens, that can turn into a very bad thing. Whenever we have an armed populace, it keeps our government in check. So I'm 100% for making sure that we use our veterans, use our gun stores, use education, and make sure that we continue to have firearms and get these gun permits done quickly and efficiently, especially for dependent spouses who are here alone while their spouse is deployed. That way they can protect their children and their families.
I am definitely pro Second Amendment. I have more guns than I need, but not as many as I want. I don't like being thought of as the gatekeeper for that. I mean, the way I see it is I'm your constitutional protection. And that amendment, as all amendments in the Constitution, are absolute. I will fight for your right to defend yourself all the way. I would actually have been pleased if we had gotten the constitutional carry passed through our legislation here in North Carolina. Of course, our governor knocked it down. But as a law enforcement officer, you know, people will call for us, and of course, we're trying to get there. We want to protect you, but you need to be able to protect yourself. I agree with our Castle Doctrine, to be able to defend yourself in your home, to be able to defend yourself if you're being attacked on the streets. By all means, I want my community to be safe and protected.
Okay. All right, we're going to move to the next question. I believe Mr. Thomas is up. Onslow County is a full participant in the multidisciplinary approach to addressing the problems of child abuse, including child sex offenses. This approach, of course, takes many different angles, all aimed at focusing on the child's victim's needs first. How would you describe your own level of commitment to that approach, and are we doing enough to protect our children?
We can always do more. I will say, when Sheriff Miller came into office 8 years ago, he promised to try to get a special victims unit to help focus on child crime. I worked the investigative division then, and I managed to get that program up and running for him. We have also instituted an ICAC program, which is the Internet Crimes Against Children program, where we seek out those who want to bully children online, as well as those that want to exploit children online. We work closely with the multidisciplinary task force. Our detectives are on the task force with them. We review all of our cases with them and the district attorney's office as well during that program. I support the peers program, and I support One Place as well with the CAC. We work very closely with them. They're a one-stop shop for us. We can do a forensic evaluation, both physical, and we can do the child interviews there. So I'm 100% behind them, and I support them all the way.
Okay. Mr. Zamora?
I'm a father. My daughter is up here right now, and she's 11 years old. That is my world, and as I told you before, I left my dream job to make sure that she knew her father. I make sure that she does jiu-jitsu training so she can protect herself whenever I'm not there. Her friends do that. The protection of our children is paramount, and it is key to our success as a society. You know, there's a lot of things that we need to make sure that we're doing, and with such a high transient rate of military people through here, we need to make sure that we are letting people who PCS in here and PCS out know who the sex offenders are in their area, because it needs to be posted, and because we know about it, they need to be made aware of it as well. Because I want our children to be able to go out and play, and us as parents to grow up like we did in the 80s, when you could go out and feel safe that your child could be out and about and not get abducted. So I want to work with our district attorney's office to make sure that child predators are dealt with in the harshest ways possible.
Mr. Yap?
I agree with Colonel Thomas. At being a grandfather now, I've raised 2 children. I honestly did not feel safe enough leaving my kids out. I watched my kids every second of the day. I didn't let them out of my sight as much as I could possibly do. My wife was a school teacher. She quit teaching and homeschooled my children. And of course, our grandchildren are going to follow the same path. I feel bad that I don't trust our community around my children enough. And everything in the world should be done. A crime against the child, against the innocent life, cannot be overlooked in any regard. Again, with the sex offender registry, we need to let people know who those people are, where they're at in their neighborhoods, and be able to watch after them. They need to be prosecuted for crimes against these children. Can't continue.
And I believe we got one more, Mr. Dunningsworth.
So, yes, I mean, it's very easy, just as a moral person, to say, yeah, you should be doing everything you can to stop this kind of thing from happening. There's a difference between someone who's a criminal because they've broken a law and the level of evil that we're discussing here, right? So, these guys hit it on the head where you have to be working with the DA and the whole criminal justice team to make sure that those people get put away for absolutely as long as possible. So, what do you do to help make that better? Well, a lot of it comes from the education of the community, not just the victims themselves. But, how many of us have heard the saying, if you see something, say something? That has to do with domestic abuse and child abuse and child sex crimes as well, because there are physical signs that is going on. So if we are looking out for each other as a community, if we're educating the community on what those things look like, there was a forum a couple years ago where, Sheriff Miller said, don't get it twisted. These high numbers for this crime are because we have an awesome relationship with the community, and these guys are reporting when bad stuff is happening. So, that kind of education with the community to bring those to our attention is what's going to help.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas, I know you had a card.
Yeah, it's not really a rebut. It's just more information for the public. All sex offenders have to register. The sheriff's responsibility is to keep track of that registry. The state has a database which identifies these individuals and where they live. That database is open to the public. So you can search that if you're in a neighborhood and you are concerned. We actively have deputies that go out and verify addresses and keep track of these individuals to ensure that we know where they are, where they say they're living, and to make sure they're abiding by their release rules or their registration rules that they have.
Okay. Anybody else? And I believe, Mr. Zamora, you start the next round of questioning. The current administration at the sheriff's office has increased the sheriff's office involvement in enforcing highway safety. In your opinion, was this a necessary step? And would you continue or alter that use of resources in the future?
Great question to start with for the ex-highway patrolman. Absolutely, of course, we need to be participating in the governor's highway safety program. Furthermore, we need to make sure that citizens can go to our website and actively see what that program is generating. Because just so you know, it does generate points. That point system can be cashed in towards the end of the year through the governor, and that allows us to get extra equipment. That is stuff that we need to do. Even though we understand that the sheriff's office's primary responsibility is not the patrol and doing the job of the highway patrol, but we need to make sure that we are actively participating in that stuff. That means that whenever we have a school resource officer, they're trained in accident investigation, so we can handle a small fender bender there at the school, and we can leave our troopers out on the roadway to handle other things, and it allows our city municipalities to work on those other things. So absolutely, we need to be active in that, but we also need to make sure that our citizens understand how that money is being used and allocated.
Mr. Yap.
The governor's highway safety traffic program, yeah, it's, with the sheriff's office getting out there and doing all these DWIs and stuff, it's been great. I mean, we've had a lot of, campaigns where we would all get together and different agencies would go and help, do, speed and traffic. I have to agree. It's cut down on a lot of drinking and driving. It's cut down on a lot of crashes. I think it's a great thing. Going as far as to have a unit that's out there just doing like the highway patrol and have their radar on all the time, leave that to our municipalities. Right now at the sheriff's office, we've got enough call volume that they're hopping from one call to the next. An officer that's tied up doing a traffic stop, he's not going to be answering that call. I'd rather them be out patrolling an area, and if they are making stops, making them out there in the public where it'll be a little more of a deterrent out on our main streets.
Okay, Mr. Donworth.
Certainly. So everything's about, it's a sliding scale of priorities, right? So, the sheriff's deputy's priority should be a call to service, but if there's a safety issue that they observe, then it would be silly for them not to intervene. So when it comes down to, whether we should be participating in the governor's program for funds, I would say yes, but it has to make sure that it doesn't outweigh what the actual priorities responding to calls to service would be. So, we have to be careful that we're not doing things that go against our mission statement and actually helping people in order to get a few extra dollars at the end of the day. Because, although the budget is extremely important, if you start sacrificing what your mission is and taking care of the citizens that you serve, well, then all of a sudden, if you're doing that for money, are you really doing the right thing, or are you trying to support the organization rather than the people that you're supposed to be protecting? So, I don't think that's happening, but it's one of those things you have to take a hard look at every time you take one of those questions is, what's the risk benefit analysis here? Are we not answering calls by doing, speed traps at a certain time of day? So.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Thomas.
Certainly. Our Driving While Impaired Task Force was brought to us by a grant the Sheriff's Office applied for some years ago. In the first 3 years of that grant, our task force members arrested 1,000 drunk drivers. Those are pretty high numbers, and those are not easy numbers to get, but Onslow County, when we started the program, was in the top 12 of the state with driving while impaired fatalities. We're no longer in the top 12. We've been able to drive those numbers down, and I'll assure you a priority for me is the safety of you and your family, whether it be us responding to a call for service at a gas station or at your home, or trying to prevent a drunk driver from killing someone on the highway when they made a poor decision. So those are priorities for us. Traffic itself, working speed traps and things of that nature, that's not necessarily the focus. Our officers are trained to find driving while impaired individuals, and that's what they focus on.
All right, well, thank you. And I believe, Mr. Yop, you're up next, and the sheriff is elected by all the citizens of the county. Taxpayers throughout Onslow County, including the municipalities, contribute to its funding, to contribute to the sheriff's office funding. How involved should the sheriff's office be with municipal police departments, including shared operations, staffing, and resources?
This is a great question. I'm an advocate of a dual sworn officer program. That would mean officers from North Topsail Beach, where I currently am employed, could be, and I'm not talking about guys that just got out of BLET, I'm talking about seasoned officers who have got some time under their belt. They could also be sworn with the sheriff's office. That way they could respond, and it would help them with their investigations and things like that. But again, this would help put the sheriff's office and the municipalities back together in a way, when it comes down to training, we'd have to make sure that all the training is sufficient for both agencies. That would cause the admin staff to work together. And I believe that working together like that would bring us closer together with more investigations. Where you wouldn't see a situation where we give them a cash crop of evidence about a drug running scheme, and then they take it and take all the credit for it and leave us out.
Mr. Donenworth.
So before September 11, 2001, all of the big three-letter intelligence gathering agencies and law enforcement agencies, they're all using different types of systems to track crime and watch who was on this list and who was on that. And that ultimately led to one of the hugest intelligence failures in world history because everyone had a piece of the puzzle and nobody was sharing. So, how important is it to work with the other municipalities that are within the county? Well, it's hugely important. We're sharing a battle space. And it's one of those things where you need to focus on what the mission is and not focus on, who necessarily gets the credit for this one or that one. Because at the end of the day, whether it was the sheriff's office that sent a deputy or solved a crime or, finished the investigation and got paperwork and an award, or whether it was one of the municipalities, at the end of the day, the end result is that bad guy is no longer doing bad things to the citizens. We're protecting the citizens that live here. So, that has to be all the way across and through that participation.
Okay, Mr. Thomas?
Would you repeat the question?
I sure
for me,
will.
please?
The sheriff is elected by all citizens of the county, and taxpayers throughout Onslow County, including those in the municipalities, contribute to the sheriff's office funding. How involved should the office be with municipal police departments, including shared operations, staffing, and resources?
Okay. Well, first, the sheriff is the sheriff for everybody in the county, like you said in your question. We do serve civil process in every jurisdiction in the county, all the little municipal towns in the city of Jacksonville, as we are the ones that have jurisdiction to do that. As far as assisting the towns, we assist them with crime scene, we assist them with investigations, we will assist them any way they request. We will provide assistance to them when they have special programs like parades or things of that nature, as will we reach out to them if we need people to assist us. Dual sworn provides a problem really for an officer. If you're dual sworn from criminal justice standards and sheriff standards, there's two different training programs that you have to keep up with every year. The answer to that is what we do now, and that's mutual aid. Mutual aid is written in our law. You do not have to be dual sworn for me to ask for a police officer from a town to come out and help me. We just make the request, and you can come help, and you have the same jurisdiction and coverage as we do.
Mr. Moore.
All right, so I think we've all talked about some great things, especially, hitting on the mutual aid, which is a great thing. Whenever you are a great leader, that means that you understand that you don't know everything. That means that you need to go to your police chiefs, like I've been doing, is figuring out how can we work together? What things are you doing really great that we could bring here to our office as well? Because each one of these municipalities, like you said, contributes to the sheriff's office. So by working together and sharing that information, we can definitely make sure that we are having effective arrest. Just like Jacob talked about, I saw it in the battle space whenever I was overseas. Whenever we shared information with the Iraqi police and the Iraqi army and the United States Army, we could come together and we could make some big captures. Whenever you remember that your ego is not your amigo, and you can put that stuff aside, you can really resolve some great problems and come up with good solutions.
Mr. Yap, you have a guard up?
Yeah. The sheriff's training standards and the criminal justice division are the same, are in the same office. This is what I was talking about, agencies actually having to work together and pull them closer together. And that was my point. And credit should go where credit is due. But many times, we've had an issue where the sheriff's office was working on a case and in our jurisdiction, and we had no clue when we would have been there gladly ready to help. And we just didn't know.
Okay.
Oh.
Mr. Zamora?
I just want to add something. So as a highway patrolman, whenever you're the only one working Jones and Lenore County, I got to work with the State Bureau of Investigation, the DEA, the Jones County Sheriff's Office, Maysville PD, Beulahville PD, and we all came together and we made one of the largest methamphetamine busts out in Beulahville. And that's because we were all willing to share information with each other. Whenever you don't leave anybody out, you can figure out what the entire puzzle looks like and solve that problem. So that's a great thing I'm really happy about, is understanding how teamwork gets the mission accomplished.
Okay. So we're up to, I think, about the last question. We'll see how much time we have after this. But so, Mr. Donworth, I believe you're next in opening this up. The concepts of community policing can be applied in many different ways. How can the sheriff's office ensure that the communities and neighborhoods of Onslow County, particularly the unincorporated areas, receive focused and targeted attention?
Yeah, so that's one of those, sliding scale of priorities thing that I was talking about in the speeding governor's initiative question. And that is, if there's a municipality that covers down on an area, on some square miles over here, then obviously the priority shifts to where there's no coverage at all. And that is what's going to increase the deputy presence where there's no other police agencies. And then if community policing is being done correctly and those relationships are getting built between the deputies and the people that live there, that's what's going to improve that. And that's what's going to, it's like right now, I live in an unincorporated part of Jacksonville. I'm outside city limits. But, I know David when he rolls down my street, and I'll usually go out, even if I've already checked the mail that day, so I can wave and say, hey, and have a conversation with him. So, they're doing the right things. They need to make sure that they continue to do those things. And again, that comes from that sliding scale of priority and being where there isn't anyone else and building those relationships where there aren't any.
Okay. Mr. Thomas?
Yes, basically community contact. We encourage our deputies to talk to the citizens when they come in contact with them, whether in the store or driving down the street, if they have an opportunity, if they're not tied up on a call at the time. But also want to expand our community officer program. We have that, like I said earlier, in Sneads Ferry. Manpower is a challenge. We're working with the county commissioners to try to get more manpower. And as we get that manpower, we want to expand it into the other communities in the county to have those community officers that the citizen knows. Those officers that can address the small problems or maybe the community problems in the area. But in addition to that, our community watch programs. We have well over 100 community watch programs, which our deputies work directly with the individuals in the community to try to keep an eye on the community and teach them about crime prevention and how not to make themselves a victim.
Mr. Zamora?
Can you just repeat the question? So.
Sure. And this was the question about community policing. The concepts of community policing can be applied in many different ways. How can the sheriff's office ensure that the communities and neighborhoods of Onslow County, particularly in the unincorporated areas, receive focused and targeted attention?
Okay, so before any of this started, I made sure, and especially COVID, I made sure that I brought my therapy dog out to the hospital. It gave me an opportunity to give back to our community, and it forced me to do something I wasn't comfortable with, and that was volunteering and talking to new people. So with that in mind, I want to make sure that we start a sheriff's posse, which is going to bring volunteers into our sheriff's office, peel back the curtain, and allow people to see what's actually happening in our office. That means that we're going to build on the community policing that's already taking place with the Citizens Academy and allow our citizens to volunteer in our offices, and especially in the unincorporated places. We can start giving them simple calls for service like animal in the roadway or tree or whatever, but we get them trained and then they can help us out. By having you volunteer in our sheriff's office, it's going to build a stronger relationship with your officers and the people who work there at the sheriff's office.
Community policing, I'm a master at it. I love talking to my community. It's amazing what those people will tell you. Getting out there and getting involved with homeowners associations and community watch groups, you know, anytime they're having a meeting, have an officer go out there and check on them, you know, go out there and communicate with them, give them tips, help them to harden the target, so to speak. Working at North Topsail Beach, I have gotten to know my community really well. And having an officer who genuinely cares, you know, really shows. Once you get out there and you're talking to people and you really genuinely care, I mean, a conversation might just start off as, oh, you know, this happened the other day. And then they'll give you some information oh, wait a minute, light bulb. I was looking for a guy that did this further down the other end of the street. It's amazing what people will do to help the police work and keep them safe.
All right, thanks.
Elliot?
Yeah, Jacob.
Okay.
Thanks.
We got time for
Sorry.
that too.
So I just want to point out that the reason that I'm running and trying to insert representation into this office, because it's basically the local executive branch of government, is that adds another layer of trust to the great job that the sheriff's office is already doing. Because instead of a community meeting that could be very successful, that is, you know, a good interaction with deputies or police officers and the community, that could be more successful if there isn't an us and them mentality. That's not to say it's us versus them, but, you know, that was the point of having a representation in all levels of the government.
Okay. I think we were done with questions. I'm going to start with Mr. Yop, let him lead off the summations, and we'll move right down the table, just do it the opposite of what we did, the opening statements.
Well, of course, vote for me for sheriff. One of the issues, you know, that I would like to see change is the morale at the sheriff's office. Morale's low. We've got longer response times at the sheriff's office than needs to be. And it's just because we don't have enough officers. And I agree with Chris Thomas. We just don't have enough officers out there. I would like to do as much as possible to work with our county commissioners, even invite a sheriff's foundation that could raise money to help provide funding so we could get more patrol officers on patrol. I don't want to see a stagnant situation continue. I want to get out there. It's always good to get new blood. It's always good to get a new, fresh set of eyes and a fresh set of hands on a situation, and someone who's willing to go ahead and think outside the box a little bit and find a solution to all of our problems. That is my goal, is to be a great solution, problem solver for our county. I don't want to be a heel. I want to help us as much as possible. It's not about the money. This is about helping people, and it always has been.
All right, thank you. Mr. Zamora.
Oh, okay, I thought we were going the other way. So look, I just want to say I really appreciate everybody giving me the opportunity. I think that's what is the greatest thing about our nation, is that here in this county, you actually had 4 men step up and answer this call because Sheriff Miller has done such a great job and he's retiring, that we all want to fill that role. So I'm grateful that I live in a country that allows me to do just that. I absolutely love this stuff. So whenever I'm telling you this, I'm only 39 years old. That means I turned 40 in November. I have a life. I have hobbies. I want to see my daughter grow up. I will never do this job until I'm old. I just want to do this job to make our county a better place. Just like all the men who have come before me, whenever it is our time to be done, we step aside and we go back to something else that we're doing. It is my job to give credit where credit is due, and whenever a deputy or a staff member messes up, I stand up and I take responsibility for that. That is the type of leadership that I've grown up under. That is the type of leadership that I love, and that's why I love this country. Thank you.
I've served my country since I was 17 years old. I've supported the Constitution since I was 17 years old. I have spent a lifetime as a law enforcement officer serving my community. I care about my community and I care about the citizens, and those folks who know me know that about me. I will always have time to try to help someone, and I believe that my experience and my education puts me in a unique position where I can move the sheriff's office forward with very little pickup with very little drag per se. I know the workings of the sheriff's office. I know the workings of other law enforcement agencies from being with the SBI, being with New Hanover County, Pender County. I've seen how other agencies do it. I've worked with a number of task forces in my career, and I see how they perform their jobs as well. I have that experience. I have that proven dedication, and I will serve you as well as your sheriff, and I will make you proud of your sheriff's office. I ask you for your vote on May 17th. Vote Chris Thomas, please.
Okay. Mr. Donenworth.
Thank you again for moderating and for City Hall to host and everything like that. It's good to get the information out there so that people can make informed decisions when it comes time to vote. So I'm going to end on this. I'm offering the opportunity to return to what I believe is the original intent of the sheriff's office, that it should be representative. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's not what it's supposed to be. Maybe that the office of the sheriff is such a technical job that without a veteran law enforcement officer filling that seat, it can't be done. A regular citizen can't cut it. It's happened before, me being wrong. But if that's the case, we're also saying that the sheriff should be a department head rather than an office, an elected office. Because if it was too complex for regular people to do, then it would be too complex for regular people to have a good enough understanding to vote on a proper candidate. So, it would also involve amending the state constitution to have the sheriff answer to the Board of Commissioners. So I don't think that that's the case, and that's why I'm running to return it to the original intent.
Okay, well, thank you. And I thank the panel for following the guidelines, and it's been a pleasure. And I'll turn this over to Lorette.
Thank you, Elliot. And thank you, gentlemen, for your willingness to serve. Thank you to the City of Jacksonville for use of these facilities and their media services. Thank you again to our sponsor, Duke Energy. And if you missed any part of the Forum Onslow, just check the listings for G10 for the rebroadcast times and dates. You can also find these forums on YouTube. But most importantly, remember, your vote has power. Absentee ballot request forms are available online from the Onslow County Board of Elections website, and it also has the dates, times, and locations for early one-stop voting. Election Day is May 17th, 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. at your local precinct. On behalf of the Jacksonville Onslow Chamber of Commerce, thank you for joining us for this Meet the Candidates Forum. We do stand adjourned.